wiggle, wobble, 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 wobble. Swag like me, style like me. Skiggity, skiggity, drum, bum, bum. Jiggly, jiggly, drum, bum, bum. Wiggle, 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 wobble, 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 wobble. Wiggle, 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 wobble, 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 wobble. Jiggly.
The Wavell Starr Show is proudly brought to you by the 306 shop located at 2322 9th Avenue North in Regina, Saskatchewan. As you can see, they have made the brand new Wavell 306 shirts. And if you want one, you can hit me up or you can head on down to 2322 9th Avenue North to the 306 shop. Mic check 1 2. So I believe we're good to go. How's everybody doing today?
We are well. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Slammer, you got a hell of a background there. Where are you coming from today?
Coming from Edmonton.
You're in Edmonton.
Rocking the back seat of my car in Edmonton, and which is leading to some, like, it looks kind of wild. Just the angle of, I guess, my back windshield in a car.
It looks pretty cool, man. And how about you, Michael Allen, Richard Clark? Where are you coming from today?
Just sitting at home right now, sitting in Regina.
Nice, nice. So, what's going on this weekend, fellas?
Oh, actually, I think I have an edited spacecraft background. That's why it looks like that.
Yeah, that's why I said you're in space.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
I don't
You're
know
like
technology. I had someone else set up the background and call for me.
no, it looks really cool, man. Did you guys make it to the gym yet today?
Not yet. This afternoon, I actually picked up a weighted vest. I'm kind of excited to use it a little more for more cardio and and like do some skipping with it and stuff. I've been skipping a bunch lately, so.
Nice, nice. How about you, Slammer? Are you going to be able to go to the gym today?
I'm going to definitely get a workout in. Probably a ridiculous amount of high rep body weight squats. Going to be doing I guess the minor training a little bit with a few of the other bros in town and see how that goes for us.
Right. So you're not talking about going down to the gym, like you're talking about going down to the training center. Would that be the Top Talent Training Center in Edmonton, Alberta?
Everything's officially closed right now. Like, this is honestly just going to have any sort of official anything right now. There are no gyms. There's nothing open. Top Talent is currently closed. Just unfortunately, restrictions went back a level. There are just no gyms unless you're one-on-one with a personal trainer. A few of us are literally just going to hang out. We're going to bullshit a bit, and our plan was to push each other in terms of, I guess, just random outdoor with some body weight stuff.
Right. Well, what's that gimmick? That sounds a little sketchy. You can't train unless it's one-on-one with the personal trainer. Like, you have to pay. Like, if you pay money to get someone to train you to lift weights that you already know how to lift, then you're allowed to do it. But if you go by yourself, which would technically be half the number of people, which should be safer, you would think so. Is there some kind of?
To my knowledge, COVID doesn't affect personal trainers.
Right.
That's the only logic I can get from this.
Right. No, it just seems like a little bit of a carny job there. I don't know about you guys, but ever since I got involved in the wrestling business, it's like nothing can be 100% believed anymore. Like, I follow any politics or anything that's going on out there, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. That could be easily engineered somehow. Did you guys have that same type of problems?
Without question, I believe most things are a work. Especially the government.
Totally.
Not conspiracy theories like some people, but if there's money to be made, people will take advantage of it.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
I agree with that. People are always kind of being scummy in a way, trying to make, like you said, make a buck and like keep the poor and the rich keep getting richer. That's just how the world works.
That's how it works. It's also Carney, and thinking about Carney, here's me and Duke Durango sitting in the same chat for the first time in many years. My friend, how you been doing, man?
I'm excellent, players. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. So obviously you haven't been doing any wrestling for a little while, but I see you've been doing a little bit of podcasting, hey?
Yeah, man. Yeah, got tired of having horseshit conversations with people on Twitter and shit like that, and figured, you know what? I apologize for language.
All good.
But you know what, man? I just thought I'm somebody that's into a longer conversation. I want to have these conversations, And yeah, 280 characters just doesn't, there's no nuance or anything. So I thought, you know what, why don't I just see if I could talk to some interesting people instead of wasting my time on this social media runaround,
Totally, and it's almost the same thing as the old text arguments, right? You could spend like hours with this text argument when really, if you were just speaking it, you could finish that whole argument in like 10 minutes, right? But everybody,
yeah, then you get these people. It's kind of like they can't read body language, so of course you can't use sarcasm or humor to make a point, right? And then like they like I just find like nowadays, guys like us are reasonable, right? We can completely disagree on something, walk away, and we're still boys, right? And that's just the way it is. But I find, and it's not a left or right thing. It's just a people thing. Like, hey, I think we should have universal basic income. Hey, I think we shouldn't. And it doesn't matter which side of that you're arguing on. You're a complete effing piece of crap from the other side, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's no like, hey, maybe we could find a way to do it or nuance it somehow. But no, we can't have the conversation because your point is junk.
Absolutely, and I think the worst part about that is that there's no real debate occurring, because if you just choose one side, you've already have your speaking notes and everything that you need already created. All you have to do is follow through with whatever's right there. So I honestly have a hard time trying to pick this whole left wing, right wing thing, because honestly, like they say, it's all part of the same bird, right?
Well. Sorry, go ahead, boys. I'm sure you don't just hear me and Wavell, but it's just the center's gone. Most of us are in the middle one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
There's no listening, and there's no movement on any argument. Like, you just have your opinion and you're stuck, and you won't listen to mine if it's different or not. That's how most people seem to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Sorry, man.
No, I was just going to say, like, and what you're seeing a lot more now is a lot of move towards the center, right? I think 5 years ago, you saw a lot of polarity, people on a lot of difference, but you're starting to see things starting to meet towards the middle, right? And for an example of that one would be, what's it called? Social conservatism. So like that's like a brand new thing, right? Like 10, 15 years ago, that was like almost an oxymoron, right? But now you seem to be seeing a little bit of blending of perspectives. And I think that it's a natural thing, and it's a good thing, because there's obviously merit on both sides. But right now, all it is just bickering back and forth. And until we get past that, there's not going to be a lot of good things happening, I don't think, anyways. In terms of the politics, and like Slammer was saying, politics 100%. Like, as a worker, when you watch this, you can see how that can all be engineered, that can all be booked, right? You pick your top guy, you put him in whatever gimmick, however, create the look that you need to do, and there's your speaking notes. Go say this, and that seems like a pretty fair gig, especially when you don't really have to come up with a lot of this stuff, right?
I think when guys like us have seen it too, you get a little jaded to the whole thing. So, I mean, I wish I was here to hear Slammer's point, but and I apologize for being late, guys. I got stuck.
It's all good. It's all good.
But it's kind of like, it's exactly like you say. When I watch pro sports, it's almost like I can see the work in it. When I watch politics, I can see the work in it, because it's like you can't make that stuff up. So if that's actually just what happens in politics, we're in serious trouble, boys. Like, if it's not a work, we're in deep trouble.
Totally, man, totally. So here's a point of contention. One of the big things right now that everybody's talking about is this whole vaccination thing, right? Because from last March until just recently, it was like, it didn't look like things were going to go very good. Then all of a sudden, hey, we've got these vaccines, and it's starting to come out. So we've got different opinions all around about the vaccine, starting with Michael Allen, Richard Clark. Are you going to go ahead and get vaccinated, or what do you say?
I actually already got vaccinated.
Wow, how'd you do that? What are you, like 50 years old?
What a privilege, buddy.
I'm
Privilege.
I'll say it.
Job. I'm considered frontline. So our company got a bunch of vaccines, and they offered it to all the full-time people.
So they just distribute it, or they had someone there, I assume, administering it?
Yeah, they had like a few nurses in the in the wherever it was, and then we all went and off we got our first dose. We have to get, there's a second dose you're supposed to get in like 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got the first one, and I was for it. It was the Pfizer one. It wasn't an AstraZeneca one, so
Yeah.
no blood clots, hopefully.
That also seems a little bit suspicious, does it not, fellas? Hey, I've got the solution. Like, there's this pandemic and it's taken over the world, but guess what? I found the solution. Here it is. But you have to buy 2 of them. You have to buy 2 of them. You can't just buy one. There's 2 of them. Does that not seem like a little bit of work? No?
Absolutely. My biggest fear with that whole thing is they have it so you can't sue if anything goes wrong.
Right.
The company is completely untouchable just because it had to be rushed. I get the reason why it had to be rushed. Like, there is, like, the world's shut down right now, and that's destroying, like, people are dying and it's crushed the economy.
Absolutely.
To be fair, with vaccines, like the 2-dose thing that you're talking about, there are other vaccines where you're supposed to, it's recommended that you update your doses. Like, for example, whooping cough. I don't know how many years in between, but obviously everyone kind of had it when they're younger, when they're a kid. You're supposed to actually get another dose again in your 20s or like when you're 30 or something, actually.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that seems like a little bit of a... That's the follow-through program, extended warranty, maybe. I don't know. Slammer, are you going to get vaccinated, man? Are you going to go line up and take that, or?
My biggest issue is I've already had COVID, so I feel I should have the antibodies. Now, if work or travel requires me to get it, I'll probably get it just to avoid having to deal with any more BS. I've heard allegedly I only need 1 dose because I have some antibodies, or if there's something that helps with the variants, maybe. But as of right now, until I'm required, I don't really see, I'm not in a huge rush to get it.
Right. Durango, what about you, man? Jordan, you going to get it?
Yeah, brother, I will. And honestly, mostly because I like to travel. Do you know what I mean? Like, do I feel like, you know, I've had all those same thoughts exactly like you brought up, the point you brought up, Wavell, and, you know, like, hey, it's pretty convenient they could make this so fast, right? But I also did a little bit of reading on mRNA vaccines. They've been working with this type of vaccine structure for a decade now. It was more a matter of changing up the protein within the vaccine. So that made me feel a little more comfortable about it, because I appreciate the science is there, but they definitely rushed what would be like, you know, I had a conversation with my missus a while ago, and she said, well, I had to go through all the same testing. Well, they really rushed the clinical trial for sure. Having said that, there's a certain level where guys just got to do, you know, kind of the greater good. And I'm not, if I get sick, I get sick. Same as if, you know, I try and do a backflip off the top rope and break my leg. That's on nobody but me. Having said that, I can't do a backflip and break somebody else's leg, right? So I'm more worried about who I can make sick than what's going to happen to me. And I would feel awful, you know, if I'm rolling through the mall with my flagrant disregard for public safety and made some old lady sick and she died. I don't, even if I didn't know, at no point do I want that shit on my karma. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. And the other thing is, I eat them Hawkins cheesies. Do you know what those are, man?
No.
You don't know what cheesy? You ever had cheesies?
Cheesies, old school, like those. Yeah.
Absolutely. In the striped bag, I eat that shit all the time. Yeah. So don't tell me whatever's in that vaccine's any worse than what's in that bag of cheesies. Don't give me that shit. Yeah. I'm probably immune from eating cheesies. It's a food group.
Yeah. Indie wrestlers in general, just from experience, if you've been working the indies for like 10 years, man, don't worry about COVID. You're good to go, man.
all the walls and the dirty rings, yeah,
for sure. And you think about it too. You look down; it's a wonder. Like I actually did get blood poisoning once, and really? you see that you work on like when we work on canvases, right? And even when you mop them off and stuff like that, you still don't really get a full cleansing of them, right? And we're out there sweating, and some guys are bleeding and boogers and all that kind of stuff, like wrestling moistly, right? And no disinfecting going on whatsoever. And we did that for years and years. And I only had once where I got sick. I actually got really sick though, because I got like a staph infection. and ended up in the hospital. It turned into pneumonia and turned into blood poisoning, and it was a mess. It was a real mess. But when you think back like that to how we used to be, and compared to how hygienic things are now, it's like night and day. And you even think back even farther when the old days when they used to blade each other, right? Same blade or whatever. Blade myself, blade you, blade you, blade you.
Jeez.
Well, I can remember sitting in the locker room and somebody asked me, like, "Hey, Jordy, are you going to get color in your match?" TJ and I had a cage match, and I know the fans went home unhappy. I know they did. No matter how hard we worked, I know the fans were pissed because neither of us cut ourselves. Neither of us, we didn't draw any color. And people asked me about it. And I said, "Okay, smart ass, when was your last hepatitis test? Because I know I've never had one.
Right.
So maybe let's not blade each other today." You know what I mean? Like, use a little bit of common sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm pretty sure we all know the worker that got hepatitis C.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We all know this
Yep.
guy, and
Absolutely.
it was a long time for him to get that shit sorted out and get better, right?
Yes.
So I don't want that on my resume.
Absolutely.
Instantly, people like that shit is like HIV in people's mind. It's not, but when people hear you have hepatitis, they will not want to work with you.
Absolutely. No. And a really good point too, to think back, like even 20, 25 years or whatever it is, didn't actually ever gaff myself, because by the time I was at the point where I would have felt comfortable enough, I was also comfortable enough to say no, because, right off the bat on the road with Can-Am wrestling, I needed to get color in front of this 50 people in Grand Prairie, Alberta or whatever. Okay, and it's almost like kind of a thing like you don't want to show the boys that you're a chicken or whatever it is. Maybe you're getting tested. Yeah, sure, go ahead. So let them cut me there. Nothing major. And then did it once through Stampede, right? Because Bruce liked to do the color for me and Thunder.
Bruce likes color.
Yeah. Bruce liked me and Thunder to try and get color. So once Principal Pound, he did it to me because I trusted him at that point. And then after that, Morris, Red Thunder, one time actually when he stayed at my place, I actually had to run him to the hospital to emergency because he got gaffed too deep, and it was an accident. It was Principal Pound, John Cosman, our good friend, R.I.P. Red Thunder let him, he gaffed him with the blade, and it was just like. And it was really bad. And I remember I took him to the hospital after that. Took Morris to the emergency, their Pasqua emergency, and they had to do the whole gimmick like back in the old days. It's too bad we couldn't show up back at the arena and do a quick run in, right?
The ring was a mess after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, when I broke in, when you guys watched the old Stampede Wrestling tapes, you remember the old Stampede Wrestling blue and white canvas with the red logo in the middle?
Of course.
When I broke in, we wrestled on that canvas. And I can remember putting up the ring for the first time, rolling out the canvas, and there was blood on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, like there's no need to be blading ourselves and rolling around on dirty wrestling mats. Pollock got impetigo at the dungeon.
What? Serious?
Yeah, man. Yeah, he got impetigo.
Wow. So that just might have had like a cut or something like
that.
Yeah,
it was on his face, man. Yeah, he must have maybe cut himself shaving or whatever. But yeah, he got impetigo. He would get it on his cheek. And it would cost him like $100 for medicine if it would flare up. He was displeased, to say the least.
Yeah, I bet, man. I bet. I don't know, but you were lucky though, because you guys had that consistent training. I think a lot of us kind of were in that spot where we would train when the ring was up type thing. Like when I first started, just I'd go there before the shows and people would teach me how to bump. It's not like they were training me because they were, pretty much untrained themselves. But guys would teach me how to bump and maybe show me how to run the ropes or whatever. And I remember those early days, and it wasn't really until I got hooked up with in Calgary there with the Hearts that I got really that full training experience, right? So it was a little different for us. How about you, Clark? You were kind of the same thing, right? Like, or were you at HIW? Did they have a training center up, or did you have to center it around when they had their shows?
No, actually, they when I started, Chuck had the garage, and it was out in the middle of the hood there off Ray Street, and the tracks behind Toys R Us.
Right. Yeah, I remember that place. Yeah.
So like when I first started training, it was in the summer, and it was funny because like Chuck and Rex would be there, and Gamble was pretty new. He was only like a year in, but Chuck and Rex would kind of on the weekends or whatever, they'd just fuck off and go get coffee or whatever kind of thing. And it'd just be me and Gamble. And Gamble, I'm lucky that he's like a coach and a teacher, right? Like, shoot. So like he pretty much taught me a lot of things. And like other guys would come down, like Joe, and obviously Rex would get in the ring, and like whoever was around. But a lot of it was like, I swear, Gamble just like running drills with me. The guy that's a year in probably has no business training anybody.
Yeah, I think lots of people had that same thing, right? Like you go to probably did that happen? Sorry, I'll go to Slammer first, but before we move on to that, how was your experience when you got started training? I believe it was Mahler. Did you get trained by the Mahler out in BC?
Absolutely. At the time, he probably had no business training me. He got better, but I think he had really only done some mini camps and some mild training himself. He gained access to a ring, and we would set it up before every single practice in his mother's backyard. Do as much as we could, took it back down. I had to get pretty much retrained by a combination of Tex Gaines and El Reverso in Alberta, which eventually led to, digressing to your last topic, actually a bit of fear, because my first PWA match that led me to was against both people in the FC case. And when that came out, I got so many text messages of people asking me to get tested. Like, are you good? And I believe in getting regularly tested, so I already knew I was good, because I bled all over. Well, fortunately, I was the green kid, so they didn't bleed on me at all. And I bled all over the other people in the game. And just got bloodbath and just got murdered by both those individuals.
Right. Jordan, you started off right. You lived in Calgary. You were going to high school and grew up in Calgary, did you not? So it was pretty natural for you to jump in with Bruce and the Hearts there, was it not?
You know what, man? We actually fell into it, and it's a long, boring story that I won't waste your time with. But long story short, we were coaching amateur wrestling to some of the grandkids, like the Harry Smith, Teddy Hart, Teddy's sister Annie was down there, TJ was down there. Yeah. And they kind of came to us and said, hey, you guys train our kids for free. You give all this time. Are you interested in pro wrestling? And at first we honestly weren't, because it was just kind of, when you're an old high school collegiate wrestler, it was just not, it wasn't the jump we wanted to make initially.
Right.
But then we were brought in by the lure of being able to make a living wrestling. So that we ended up training, we traded with the Hearts. We trained all these kids amateur wrestling, and they trained us pro wrestling. So it was something we actually fell into. It wasn't something that we honestly set out to do. It was never a plan in my life, like, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. It was like, hey, I could get paid to wrestle. Let's try this.
Who got trained with you?
There was myself, Pollock, my brother Dean, and at the dungeon at the time were Kerwin Bostic, Tex Gaines, and
Adrian.
Adrian came a little later.
Okay, yeah.
And I love that guy.
That was how I got in. That's how I got in. First, okay. Yeah, I played football with Adrian here on the Regina Rams, and and I started off with the local guys here, and he just went straight to Calgary, and I guess he was over with Bruce. So he was able, so he was able to put in a word, and with combination of Bob Leonard's and Principal Pound putting in a word for me, that got me out to Calgary. So that was really nice, because I was the other way around. I wanted a place to train. Right? Like I was like, okay, I want to get into wrestling. This is something that I want to do. And, just because there was shows locally, that was kind of the easiest way to get started, just by hanging around and helping out, working security, setting up the ring and all that kind of stuff. But really, once I got down to Calgary, man, that was it for me. And I guess it was kind of almost like one of those mark out moments, because anybody that knows me knows that, like, I grew up on Stampede Wrestling, and it means quite a bit to people here, like people around my age, in Saskatchewan, and you probably get the same thing as well, is that when you mention your experience with Stampede Wrestling, that, like, people stop and they take notice, because they really remember that. Do you agree with that, Jordan?
Oh man, I wear, because I'm such a big mark, I wear like Hart Family Wrestling t-shirts. I buy all the old Brett stuff from Roots of the Fight. Yeah. And I was wearing a Hart Family Wrestling shirt, and I walked onto a plane. I don't even know where I was going, but I walked onto a plane, and some old guy sees me, and he's old enough to be my grandfather for sure, and he says, I used to know Stu Hart. You know what I mean? So people everywhere will recognize it. If you say Stampede Wrestling, they know what it is.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. For sure, man. And it helps. It helps quite a bit, honestly, when you explain to people, because I don't know if you guys ever felt that it was always tough as an indie wrestler out of the first few years for people to take you seriously. They if they didn't know where you were training or had never heard of anything of what you were doing, it was really hard to get anybody to take you seriously. So it was really once that I connected with Stampede Wrestling, that people really started to support me locally, and that kind of that makes a big difference, right? And do you guys remember anything when you first started in the business? Any training stories, or perhaps any road trip stories where maybe things, maybe not so glamorous, right? Because we all have those moments like where we were under the bright lights and the adrenaline got us, and we say, "Wow, that was awesome." You ever have those moments where you thought like, "Wow, this really isn't all that awesome. This is really, really underwhelming."
That shot, the shop, man, like just pulling up to the shop and like walking in the backyard, and this like ring is outside in the backyard of this like garage with all this graffiti and vandalism on it. It's like, what is this?
People
like,
just smoking.
Yeah, in the middle of the hood. And then like pretty early on, a group of guys, we had a big turnout at training one day. There was probably 9 of us there, and a group of guys were walking down the back lane. And I'm sure you've been to the shop, right, Wavell?
Oh yes.
Yeah, so they like walk in, and this one guy's like really drunk, and he's like, "Oh, I love UFC," and he like gets in the ring and starts poking at everybody, and it's just like a group of guys, and even his buddies were like, "Yo, you should get out of the ring," kind of thing. But it's like, whoa. And then the next summer, the summer after, there's people living in that house, and they're dealing drugs out of the house, so there's needles all over the place all the time. Big mess.
that would definitely happen. I'm sure that is not an uncommon story for people that just lived all their lives just innocently, and then walk into the wrestling business and they're like, "What the fuck did I just see?" Slammer, you got any experiences like that where you thought this is super underwhelming?
2 of them. One, we had a bunch of cracked ring boards when I was first getting trained in Prince George, so we bought a whole bunch more. Someone dropped them off about 5 to 10 minutes before I got there, and by the time I got there, I just see these like tire marks ripping laid out of the parking lot, and all the boards were missing within 10 minutes. Like someone went out of their way to steal our ring boards, like 16-foot long ring boards in a matter of 10 minutes.
Wow.
I've had that. Also, the intimidation of when I first went to Alberta, having to, I got brought out to Obima to train with Thunder in the middle of the winter. And I was like, okay, we're going to have a building. And I see this ring covered in snow in his backyard. And me and El Reverso were shoveling out a ring before we started training in the middle of winter.
Jordan, you must have a few of these.
I love this business, man. Like, what other business can you tell us? Okay, I'm going to tell a bit of a story because it's one of the craziest things I've seen in wrestling. I can't remember if you were on this tour or not. We were in Saskatchewan for sure. And for whatever reason, all the boys totally blew off kayfabe, and we're all actually like 15 of us eating breakfast together in Smitty's. And there's a lady behind us. I don't mean to be fattest, but she's easily 350, 400. She's large and in charge. She's wearing, do you remember the Simpsons when Homer got so fat he couldn't dial the phone and he would just palm the phone? He was wearing a muumuu in that particular episode. She was wearing exactly the same thing. Anyways, sorry. I'm sitting across from actually Bill Yates, and she orders food, obviously ordered pancakes. They bring her over the pancake syrup and the butter. And instantly I see Billy make a face, so I can't help but turn my head. And there's this lady she has the pancake syrup in one hand and a soup spoon in the other. And she's crushing soup spoons of pancake syrup while she waits for her food. So right away, we're just like, holy shit, man. So then it gets better. So then her food comes, we're all sitting there eating, and I look up, and Billy's got this look on his face like, it's not good. Like, he's grossed out bad. And of course, all 15 of us look over at this table, and we see this lady reach into what Pollock beautifully described as, that's probably like a third fucking armpit down there, reaches down between her boobs, pulls out a piece of scrambled egg, and crushes it. So then the meal goes away. She's done eating. I think she might have saved the utensils, maybe not. But then they take all the food away, but they made the mistake of leaving the butter. And of course, Billy goes, "What the hell?" And we all turn around again, and she's got the butter couplets open, and she's eating the butter couplets with a teaspoon. Do you know what I mean? And so I look at the boys and I go, "Hey, you guys think of what I'm thinking?" They're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "I bet she got a thyroid condition." Yeah, and I tell that story, and so people might not find it funny, but here's the thing. I've been to a lot of different places, but only in wrestling do you get stories like that. Do you know what I mean? You got to be in a wrestling business to get those kinds of stories.
Yes.
Never mind excuse me, the level of crazy people you just meet in the locker room is unheard of.
Right.
I just love the wrestling business. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, you meet some really, really interesting characters in even in the locker room and outside of the locker room. You definitely meet some of the most interesting characters out there. It just seems to bring them all in. I don't know if it's the carnival aspect, the carny roots, or what it is, but you certainly meet a lot of eccentric people. And I guess, let's see, for me, one of them, okay, yeah, I remember on the road, Northern Roads tour with Tony Condello. And and I loved it because, you hear so much about it, Christian and Edge and Lance Storm and Chris Jericho and all those guys always talking about how good it is. So I was like, all right, this is my break. After this, it's, Chi-Chi's getting looked at by WWE. I bet you I'm going to go too, So I'm just a raw rookie and I'm thinking I'm on the road. I'm following the same path as all those guys. And everything is going good for the first few shows. And then, of course, you guys know what it's like. There's not a lot of glory when you're sleeping on a blue mat in a kitchen, like the home ec room or whatever it is. And but it's good because you go out there and you wrestle. Sometimes you get that crowd that's like 300 people and they're just crazy. So, all of the tough time that you had all day being out in isolation, well, it's kind of worth it, right? Because you go out there, you perform, you get that adrenaline and you're good to go. You're happy again. But I remember being just worn down from all the driving and being around everybody, and everybody was just getting like that part of the tour where it's just getting really tough. And we got to one of the communities and it was not at all ready for us to get there. I don't think anybody knew that there was a show. We might as well have been there to change the stop sign or something like that, right? And when we went to wrestle, it was really cold outside. Nobody felt like wrestling, and it had a low roof in the thing. And I swear to God, less than 10 people watching, but the show went on, right? Because the show went on, and I was like, okay, I gotta try and get myself all pumped up, because back then when I was a young guy, I used to have to think that you had to be adrenaline ready, like a football game or a real fight, So I'm backstage trying to get my adrenaline going, trying to get in the mindset. And they introduced me when I get out there, First Nation sensation Wavell Starr, and I jump up on the second turnbuckle, boom! I bang my head on the top of the roof, and the 12 people that were there started laughing at me, right? And just anybody here watch WrestleMania? What'd you guys think?
Oh yeah, I thought it was fantastic to have a crowd again.
Yeah, that was the big thing, and the 2 nights is really smart because you can't have a 10-hour Mania, right?
Yeah, and I thought it was really good. I think fans are so fickle now; people are pissing on it, and I just think that, Anyways, I won't get into that's a whole nother story. No, man, I thought it was really good. I agree with Michael. The 2-night thing, I think they can do some really cool stuff with production, and you can run 5-6 matches, and when that main event comes in the ring, the fans aren't burnt yet. I think the 2-night's a good way to go.
Right. To be totally honest, over the past 10 years, I've probably watched 3 WrestleManias as they happened. I generally usually do watch after the fact because after the hype dies down or whatever it is, but I didn't really watch too much of this. Actually, I didn't see any of this year's. But one of the things that I've noticed though for sure is that it's a really big commitment, man. Like that WrestleMania pay-per-view is not like your 2-3 hour show, right? Sometimes you're looking at 4 hours, and honestly, I don't have a lot of patience to do anything for 4 hours, much less sit still and watch wrestling. But I do like to keep up, so eventually I'll get back there and see what happened. What were you guys' impressions of it? Because it was actually in front of a live crowd this time, right? Because this whole time it's been this COVID wrestling, which I think everybody's pretty sick of as well. So what was it like with the actual crowd there?
It's like refreshing to see a crowd again. I'm curious, did they make them provide proof of a vaccine or a negative test, or what's the deal with letting those 25?
It's Florida, man. They don't, in Florida, if you don't have COVID, they'll give it to you on the way in. They don't care.
So, yeah, and lots going on in Texas as well, right? Texas right now is full blown wide open, right? They saw the Texas Rangers home opener not too long ago, and it was a packed house. Of course, it's old news now because everyone's seen the clip. But I remember when the first day that people were showing that on Facebook, people were like, "Oh my God, look how many people are there! That's got to be one of those what do they call those super spreader events?" So have we heard anything about that yet though? Because it's been a couple of weeks now, right? So have the numbers like jumped way up, or what's the deal? What happened? Because we should know by now.
I haven't been paying attention, honestly. I kind of quit paying attention to numbers because it just hurts my feelings.
Yeah, well, I definitely got sick of that that grind after a while. Like we were eventually just like, you know what? I'm gonna stop selling. I'm sick of waking up and selling for COVID, and I'm no selling. No, but really, because we're all watching.
I'm totally no selling COVID right now.
Yeah. We're all watching like a bunch of marks, watching the numbers. Oh, it went up. Oh, it went down. Oh, we better wear 2 masks. Oh, we better clean our hands again. And it's like all those measures and stuff. Like I understand, and I hate to sound insensitive because I know that there is a real risk. To lots of people, but I have to admit, man, like this is not ideal. Like living like this is plan B, and we're making the best of it as we can of plan B. But honestly, man, I miss the old days when you could just like get up and start doing stuff, and not have to be so worried about everything. But I guess that this is part of this whole new reality that we're talking about. So I guess what can we expect moving forward, right?
Well, I mean, it's been honestly, I'm such a handshaker and a hugger. This has actually been almost not all but killing me. Do you know what I mean? So I heard that Dr. Fauci kind of say like, oh, people might not shake hands again. Get the fuck out of here with that. All right. Once everyone's got a vaccination, I'm going to be shaking hands and hugging people, and it's going to get weird. I have no problem telling you
that. Shaking hands, when you think of it though, because really in wrestling, that's kind of a big thing, right? Like if you go someplace and you're new in the locker room and you're not showing that you don't want to go out there to shake hands. It makes you look like you got a big head, or this guy thinks that he's too good for us. What's the matter? Right? It sends out this kind of a weird vibe. But now, how is it going to be now? Will people understand if it's just like, I'm sorry, I respect everybody, but I don't like touching hands? Or what's going to happen? Is that going to affect your perception of somebody if you see them walk into the locker room and they don't shake everybody's hand?
I feel like if they address it, it's fine, right? Like if they're like, oh, like how you sort of did it, I'm no disrespect. Like this is just I don't want, or whatever it may be. Like okay, that's fine. But if they've walked in, sat down, and started fucking around or getting dressed, and it's like, who the fuck is this guy, right?
No, man, fuck that guy either way. So you're telling me that you can get in the ring, blade yourself, breathe all over, sweat all over, drool all over, but shaking hands, crossing the line. Joe Rogan again. Get the fuck out of here.
30 people's hands.
Oh, come on. Just carry some sanitizer. Stop
I'm
it.
not going to shake your hand now.
I'm gonna. Not only am I gonna make you shake, I'm gonna lick your face when I'm done. You son of a gun.
All right. How about that basketball player? Remember, if you think back right to the very beginning of COVID, and it was still people didn't know anything about it, and then he came out there and he did the press conference and he started touching everything, right? And started touching people or whatever, and then they found out that he had COVID. Wow, he must have felt like such a heel, hey?
I've been there.
Yeah. How do you like your polio? You remember that story? You guys ever hear that story, Slammer? Michael Allen, Richard Clark. Did you guys ever hear that?
Tell this story. This is one of the best stories of all time for me. I love this story.
So the business has changed quite a bit, right? So everything is a lot more politically correct. But back in the day, and even before, like when we started and before then, it was even worse, right? And it was there's a story that comes out of the Winnipeg area, and it can be confirmed by checking with anybody, any of the veterans from that area, because that's where I heard it. But basically what had happened is that there's a huge heat in Winnipeg one time because one of the heel performers was cutting a promo, and somebody was challenging him, and he sent the person out and said, "Oh yeah, well, you have polio. How do you like your polio?" And it's like, as you can see, that's not a very sensitive thing to say. And it even felt weird to tell you the story about it right now. So if you go back and you could think of what it would be like to actually say that, where this guy was like literally making fun of somebody that had a disability, that would not go over at all nowadays. Like, that person would be canceled, and you know, that's really that's where the business finds this awkward spot, right? Because throughout time immemorial, it was really about all different sorts of characters, and many people might even make the statement that it's about almost reinforcing stereotypes and making the most of it, right? And but out of that, there was always this brotherhood, because we all understood, right? Because there was like the cowboy, the Indian, and there was a Tiger Ali Khan was our East Indian, and we had everything, right? Like we had a real diverse group, and we all knew that was our gimmick, and that's just the way it was. That is really the earliest form of inclusion and diversity is in professional wrestling, right? Because even though the images that were portrayed out there weren't necessarily sending the best messages, but the brotherhood and within the workforce was absolutely fantastic. You'd never see a crowd so diverse walking into a restaurant or a gas station than a group of wrestlers. And how does that turn out? You guys ever feel that when you walk in, that you're on the road someplace and you stop for gas or something, and you get out with like short sleeve Samson and Mabel when he was still alive, R.I.P. and you know, things like that. You just really look like it's like you turn heads, right? Have you guys ever noticed that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't have any stories pertaining to it, but for sure. And yeah, it's just like you said, I've never really thought of it like that, but it is like a diverse brotherhood for sure, and like that mutual respect that everybody has for being in the business.
Yep.
Yeah. I walked into one of the small towns in Alberta. We can safely say predominantly white town. Yep. And walked in with Gamma Singh Jr. and Moa Dan and Kid Chocolate. And we walked in, and literally everybody in the restaurant stopped and turned and looked at us.
Yeah.
And I looked at them and I would go, "Is this what it's like for you guys all the time?" And they're like, "Pretty much." I was like, "Yeah, that's so weird."
Totally right. And it must be for you guys when like we're in a like on the road, like in the reserve or way up north, like, you know, you walk in with Slammer, right? And people are like, "What? Who is that? Where does he come from?"
Just walking around, Zubaz, fanny pack, looking at weird, like not like anyone else there, just getting stared the whole time.
Yeah, totally. You know,
are you the wrestler?
Yeah,
the only one. Are you the wrestler?
And I remember, I used to take my son on the road quite a bit, and I remember it was the day of the show, and we were in Edmonton, so I used to like to take him to the West Edmonton Mall during the day, right? So I already have the tan on, have the head shaved, and sort of pre-ready for the show, and we're sitting there. I was ordering food in the food court or whatever, and my kid was like, "Daddy, everybody's looking at you." I was like, "That's good, son. That means it's turning on and they're starting to acknowledge it."
Yeah. I find it's a cool thing though too, because like you say, in the early 2000s, I seen some stuff. Like I can remember somebody trying to start a chant that was so offside, and literally in the year 2000. Yeah, I remember looking at the boys in the locker room going like, it's 2000, and boys, I'm a hick, right? I admit I am a difference between a redneck and a hillbilly is rednecks can generally read. So I'm a total redneck, right? But even I got to a point, you almost, late 20s, like, geez, maybe I shouldn't be such a racist piece of shit all the time. And then, you kind of go to these shows, you start hearing these chants like, "Go home packing." It's like,
right.
What are you doing? Like, who says that?
Yes.
You know what I mean? I can remember kind of like getting to the point where the office would want us to try and get it started, and the boys would never. Like we would never bother doing the, oh yeah, I want you to go out there and say this to the crowd. Like, I'm not saying that to anybody. In fact, I'm not even going to tell the guy I'm working that you told me to tell him to say that.
Yeah, for sure, man. There was definitely some times, but I do remember, I'm kind of lucky because there's we're all young and we're all aggressive. We're all alpha males. We like to work out, and the way we are. And doesn't matter. We're all human, right? So we're out there and I'm trying to work babyface in like a small town, Saskatchewan in the middle of nowhere. And not at all getting over as a baby face. Not at all. The farthest thing from getting over as a baby face. And of course, as a rookie, that bothers you. As a young guy, you're like, what? I'm usually over. How come I can't get over? Right. And then and there was this one specific crowd of guys, like there were these young guys, like probably 20 to 24, somewhere in there. And they were a rowdier group and stuff like that. And they were all over me, man, like all over me. Where like the guys that like Ruffy, I was working with Ruffy, and where Ruffy was like knew like, wow, these guys are assholes, eh? And I remember I Ruffy threw me out. So Ruffy threw me out, eh? And I just went and I put myself like just right in line with this crowd. And it's crazy. You shouldn't do it. But like I said, I was young and aggressive and just full of this rage all of a sudden, right? So throw me out. He throws me out and I sell where I'm just like, I got this line and throw me into him. And so Ruffy just, and like, you hit the ropes or hit the wall or something. It's just like I went running at him and just like launched myself sideways and knocked him over. And, I could have got beat up. You don't want to get.
You would have got beat up. That locker room would have emptied so fast.
Yeah. That's true. Back then, for sure, the locker room would have been all there, and it would have been.
Guarantee you and Ruffy are a curtain sellout anyway. Everybody's watching that match.
For the comedy spots, absolutely right.
No, two beauties. Don't say that, man.
But that was crazy, man. And is like I said, like how we all are. And then when we got back, Ruffy was like, "Are you okay, man?" Geez, I thought you were kind of thought that was for real for a while there. I was like, "Yeah, don't worry about it, man. It's all good." But it was just this moment, right? And it's like now that I think of it, that I'm older, like I could have really gotten into some big trouble, right? Either could have got charged, getting some kind of legal problems, or even worse.
They're part of the show once they buy that ticket. Live action theater.
Yeah, in a sense, but I don't know if that's going to work nowadays. But what would have been even worse was if I would have got beat up by like 3 20-year-olds.
They could, like, who knows what they got? Lots of people carry like knives or something. Waiting.
That's the bigger concern, too. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I always heard if you go to certain places deep, like down south, some of the, Mexico, Puerto Rico, if you're a heel, stay away from the guardrails because there's a good chance you'll get slashed.
Yeah,
and again, I've heard it's different now, but I did hear a lot of that stuff when I was breaking in.
Yeah, and they're talking about people throwing cups full of urine and shit like as they're walking by and stuff like that's some pretty tough stuff. So I don't know, like that would be really hard to keep in control and be professional and not lash out if things like that happen, right?
I've snapped before. I'm not proud of it, but I've snapped before from fans throwing shit.
Yeah, me too.
The thing that upsets me the most, peanut M&Ms. You ever been hit in the head with a peanut M&M? Like someone throwing a rock at you. Like it's the worst thing in the world, man.
It's like this marble.
I got hit in the head one day like 4 or 5 times with peanut M&Ms. And after that, I was like, the next piece of shit that throws something at me. And yeah, I had an altercation with a fan not much longer later that was throwing shit at me, and I come absolutely unglued. Not my best moment for sure.
Did you feel like a piece of shit after?
You know what? Yeah.
I did the same.
But I'll bet this. I bet that piece of shit never threw another thing at another fucking show.
Right. And I did the same kind of thing one time at when HIW moved from the German club to whatever the on Victoria there. Yeah, Victoria the Vic. Club, yeah. Yes. And it was really condensed. So the crowd was really close to you, very intimate. And they were getting good crowds back then too, right? And I got hit with a cup of beer. And I don't know, like big deal, right? So I got hit with a cup of.
The guy wasted the beer.
Yeah, but at the time, I was like, "What the fuck?" You know, right?
Absolutely.
And so I was part of it was in character. It was like, okay, I gotta acknowledge this. And then part of it, I just started going and going, right? And I could see that once I got out of the ring, that some of the boys were like looking, like even Chuck looked over and was like, is this what's going on? So I actually went and as they escorted him out, I followed him out. I followed him right to the door and I looked at him right in his eyes and I told him, so you ever do that again, I'm gonna fucking kill you. You know, something like that, right? Because you're in the moment and you're just like whether I'm working or whatever, like I'm going for it, right? And after that, I was like, wow, like what, like what if I'm related to this guy? Like, because you don't really like you
never know who's at a show,
right? And you don't know who that is. And there's me like face to face, like pointing at him as he's getting eliminated. And for sure, man, yeah, I definitely I had that remorse after the match was over. Too. Yeah. Thank you for that, for making me feel not as guilty. Yeah. Slammer, you ever have anything like that? I noticed that you had a lot of big heat a lot of the times in throughout Alberta there. Did you ever have anything like that?
One actually, I'm pretty sure I was actually working with you. I was the baby face. People were cheering pretty hard for the most part, but there was this one drunk guy the whole time, and he just kept yelling slammers and insert sexually derogative comments, starting with an F over and over, constantly. And he was bothering the whole crowd. Like, you can tell everyone was uncomfortable because of this one guy. I slammed you. I told you to stay down. I jumped on the top rope and I'm like, if you don't shut the fuck up right now, I'm gonna bend you over in front of this crowd and I'm gonna fuck you. The whole place fucking popped. He's like, I'll see you out in the fucking parking lot after this. The look on his and his friends' faces the moment the match stopped. Scott Lee Crew had a nightstick for his match, so I just ripped it out of Scott Lee's hand. I walked right to that parking lot, walked up to the whole crew with that nightstick, and he looked like he was shitting himself, put his hand out. He's like, nice match, nice match. I fucking spit on his hand, fuck you, and walked away.
Right. So he didn't think he thought he was in the safe zone because hey, I'm still in the crowd. I'm an audience member. I'm a fan. He's not going to say anything. It spills outside. Then all of a sudden things are different, right?
And it was just that look of like, oh shit, and young, just being dumb myself. Got like, I could have, as you said, I could have been stabbed. I could be sued if I did. Like, what if he wanted to fight me?
Right.
Match skills a nightstick. Like, it was just being dumb. I've had that. I actually ended up punching one of Squid's sponsors once. I was a heel. I got like a trash throwing heat after a match from cheating. And as I was leaving, this guy just jumps in front of me on my way to the back. And I'm bowing up looking like a wrestler. Then I'm talking with a human being. I'm like, hey man, I can't look weak right here. I really need you to move to the side. Like, I can't back down, bro. I need you to sit down. I'm trying to talk with a human being. Yeah. And he just won't move. So I go to push my way past him, and he pushes me right back. But he spits at me, so I just fucking drop him, and I get to the back, and I'm furious. Like, the crowd honestly thought he was a plant. It happened so quickly. Yeah. His buddy just hit the floor. I was like, cool, slammer beat. Like, I had a girlfriend there. She's like, oh, that was kind of weird. I used through that little audience interaction, but it was just so fast and organic that people just thought it was part of a work.
Right.
I'm in my mind, like, why is this guy not kicked out of the building? We had no security. We had no nothing. But it's like, oh, sponsor. Oh, can you apologize? I'm like, fuck no, I didn't apologize. Buddy spat at me, took a swing at me, and I laid him out. He's like, are you going to go to the after party at his bar? I'm like, oh God, no, I'm not going to go near his after.
But in a sense, though, the part of that is kind of good, right? Because it's been, because of the evolution of the business and how time has changed, it's really hard to get that legit heat in a building nowadays compared to back in the day. But you can really recognize it when you see it, and when you feel it, it's like, wow, this is really powerful. You can tell that, like, that's the energy that brings people there. And like I said, you don't see it as much nowadays, but I do remember in Edmonton one night, Slammer, I don't know if it was you or Vince Austin, for sure Hawks. And it was an angle with Teddy. And, cause back then Teddy was working quite a bit for RCW. And, I think you guys gave his girlfriend or his partner. You gave her a pile driver, like a spike pile driver, and laid her out. And then Ted came on and he did his shoot interview, right? Like where he called you like by your real name or whatever, and then and she stayed laid out. And then all of a sudden the fucking ambulance pulled up to the venue. The ambulance pulled up to the venue because they thought, "Oh my God, these guys are killing this guy's girlfriend. What, we better call the ambulance." And that was something else, man. Because you really hard to get that kind of heat nowadays. Was that? Do you remember that night?
Oh, absolutely. I remember marking it so hard that people believed it and actually called the police. I'm wanting to say it was Metal and Jess.
Might have been.
I think, because I do remember the angle. I'm wanting to say it was one of the two of them that pile drove her. And yeah, Ted just cut like a legit shoot promo.
Yeah.
People must have thought it was really like just, they said breaking character.
Yeah.
Furious at everyone, and just seeing the ambulance actually show up, having us to talk down the ambulance, like,
yeah, don't worry about it. You can go. She's okay.
We're not paying for you.
Yeah. And isn't it weird when you think back to that too? Because like we had a really good run of shows at that place, and it would get really rowdy and a good atmosphere in there. Then you'd go at the back, and you're just like in suburbia. Right? Like there's like the duplexes there, an apartment block over there, and a playground over there. Durango, do you remember any shows like that? I know that you guys got a lot of heat doing the old double pile driver gimmick quite a bit for Stampede back in the day. Hey.
Oh man, yeah, for sure. The biggest heat we ever got was when we fucked Red Thunder over in Musquatchies one night and got
legendary heat.
Yeah, that was like full cans of pop getting thrown at us. Security had to escort us to the car. Like that was one of those things. Like we thought we had the coolest angle. You know what I mean? Right. We thought, oh yeah, we're gonna bring them back, and I think we killed the town. To be honest with you,
right? I think so
because
too.
The fans, like the next show, we drew flies. Right? Like
right.
We went from drawing 500 people and starting a riot to. I think the house was literally 99 people the next time we went back.
Right. See.
So then, and that's when shortly after that you came up with, let's go to the reserve and put the native over.
Yes, every time. That was good. It was a good chant. It was a really good chant.
It's catchy. It's catchy.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I remember that. That was that was a lot of heat. But I do think back that I used to hate that when I was a young rookie babyface, and they'd always say, "Okay, we got a great house tonight, so we got to lay out." So you go out there and then you do your best, and you're super over, and then they beat the shit out of you and lay you out, and that crowd gets to see the heels laying over you. Oh, but don't worry, you'll get the retribution at the comeback show. Back. Yeah, well, fucking nobody shows up at that show. No, nobody ever shows up for your inside cradle 1, 2, 3. Right, for the baby face retribution.
Happy the first night and then try your shit the second time.
Right. You know that I've had to change that, because I remember when I first got involved in the business, and I would try to line up shows at the reserves, and then the promoters would always try and do that. Okay, well we'll job you out this time, and we'll come back and we'll put you over. And it's like no, that's not how we'll do it. There's no angles. This is one-offs, house shows. We do one show at a time, and it's packaged like a fucking circus. Right.
And I'm happy.
Yeah. And even when I worked in OVW for Jimmy, when we did the house shows, those were all, they were packaged, right? Like you would have, mind you, there was so many people on the cards, but like people you'd go out there and he'd ask you to do like 4 minutes worth of work stretched out over 6 minutes. Right. Okay. And so it's a house show. It's a commercial. Don't get hurt. Go out there, practice your stuff, get your fundamentals down, work on your timing, be a professional, then get out. And you should feel better after the match than you did before, because at that level, they're starting to think about working like several times in a week. Whereas when you're working on the indies, you work whatever it is, once a week, twice a week. Right. And you have all that time to recover. So speaking of recovery, how are you guys doing for injuries? Let's go around the horn. We'll probably start from the youngest to the old. Who's the youngest? It'd probably be Clark, I would assume, right?
Probably me. Yeah. I'm good. Like I know I said I had pec surgery, but everything's like been pretty good and pretty kosher, getting my strength back up. It's a slow process, and it's kind of frustrating that your bench or like, you know, things that you're doing before kind of like really drop off. But it's good to see like the progress coming back up and like hitting milestones again. So
Yeah.
it's just a slow road.
But does that, now that you've experienced it, does it make you think, okay, no more fucking around? Because that's because I think I believe you told me when it happened, like at a small, like a birthday party demonstration sort of a thing.
Yeah,
Right?
it really does. And like now it's going to be like a lot more into like warming up and making sure you're limber and things like that. And yeah, like a lot less fucking around and like probably passing on some smaller things, being like, no, like, what's the point, right?
Right. Yeah, be a little bit safer. How about you, Slammer?
For the most part, I'm actually feeling phenomenal. My last little tweak was my left elbow. From taking an arm drag, the other guy kept his hook. I'd let mine go and tried to roll through, and I didn't realize he was keeping my arm. So there's that quick, you almost roll yourself into an arm bar for half a second.
Yep.
Ironically enough, it was me trying to show someone who's actually a bit cocky and abused a few of our students. He had slapped one of our guys in the face, so I'd kind of, not being rude, but, you know, kind of just snugging him up a bit in a heat drill, and then give him a little bit of a comeback part. Who thought someone could screw up an arm drag? I get actually, ironically, get my own arm tweaked for taking an arm drag.
Wow. Of all the high impact spots that you've taken over the years, and you see when you get hurt, it's on the dumbest shit, right? How about you, Jordan?
I didn't even fall for it.
No, eh? Shit. How about you, Jordan?
I just want to make a quick thing.
Yep.
One thing I learned very early on going from amateur wrestling to pro wrestling is we'd always have the workout right at the dungeon. And then guys would start trying things afterwards. That's when someone always got hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We'd go through the hardest workout, but it was always, and go back to Mike, like you always get hurt fucking around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'll have people like, oh, can you show me this? No. Like, I'm not fucking around. I'm not going to get hurt for nothing. Like, come play softball. No, I don't want to go fuck around playing softball. I'm going to get hurt for nothing.
Yes, right.
I had friends call me a pussy because I wouldn't come play softball.
Yes,
and
softball.
I said something that I'll tell you guys off camera what I said to the guy back. I will never repeat it in public because it was god awful, to be honest with you, but it's still funny. Having said that, you know what, man? I feel okay. My knees bug me quite a bit. Lower back's a little tight, shoulders bother me. But really and truly, probably my neck is the biggest thing. And that's just from doing bridging suplexes. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And I'm not going to tell anybody not to do them because they look fantastic. But you know, you young guys that want to do all these really cool stuff, really consider the wear and tear and what it's worth. Like when we were talking earlier about cutting your head open, I'm not against gigging, but there's certainly a time and a place, and do it as safely as you possible. But know down the road, every one of these things, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So as young guys, you don't realize, right? Like when I was 20, one of the reasons I quit wrestling at 46 was not that if I would have really stayed in shape, I probably could have went into my 50s, to be honest with you. But it was that those little injuries just take so long to heal. You take it for granted when you're a young person. So really and truly, I'm just tight. So my only advice to young guys now is like, do yoga. Right? Like, make sure you're doing that stuff. Stretch, like to Michael's point earlier, make sure you're warming up. Like you could say, I could tell you right now, the last 5 years of my career, I lifted consistently, but I certainly never lifted anything heavy. Do you know what I mean? If I couldn't do 15, 20 with it, I'm not even touching it.
Right.
But the importance, but the guys would see me, and you guys, Michael and Slammer can probably vouch. You guys would see me warm up for half an hour before I'd ever get in the ring. Yeah. Right. Because you can't, when you're a young guy, you can do whatever you want, but you guys stay warm, stay stretched, stay loose. Yeah, man. Cause these injuries pile up, especially with the high impact, like, especially now the guys wrestle a different style than we did, Wavell, right? Like, yeah. You know, you and I would go off the top rope in a match, but we weren't often off the top rope to the floor with no padding on the ground and things the way these guys are today, right?
Yeah, and the apron bumps.
Young guys, man. Oh, don't get me fucking started on apron bumps. Fuck apron bumps. Actually, Michael and I had a conversation about this.
Yeah.
Kind of on an IM a little while ago, because that's actually my soapbox right now. Please, for the love of God, especially you guys on the indie shows where the rings are horse shit. No apron bumps.
Right, right. Yeah, no, yeah. Well, especially a lot of the rings. Like, imagine if you did that on the old HIW ring, where on this, like, you could literally feel the wood underneath you when you walk over it, right? So yeah, I wouldn't advise that, and especially when they're doing the back bumps, because it's like obviously you bump in the middle of the ring for a reason, right? Because that's where all the give is, and but I'm sure everybody already knows that. They're just doing it because it's hardcore or whatever. But one thing that
guys,
yeah, totally
hating the young guys.
Yeah, but one thing that I totally get you on that is one of the biggest causes of injury for like middle-aged men and older is baseball or slow pitch or softball or whatever you want to call it, because they're out there and they're playing this game and they're doing absolutely nothing until they're up to bat, and then they do a full sprint, and full sprint is not easy on your body. So that's why you always hear of old guys tearing their Achilles tendons or tearing a hamstring or blowing their knee, because like sprinting that's not an old man's thing to do. Sprinting, maybe get stronger and better at defending yourself so you don't have to run away. Because totally. Yeah, but yeah, says that sprinting is a super big cause of injury. And then now that I'm getting older, I guess the main injuries that I have now is probably noticing that, like, I can look good, like when I diet and I work out, hey, I look great, but I don't move the same as you get older, because I realize, like, there's sort of from the mid back to the tailbone is really stiff, right? And it takes a lot of time to get that moving and mobile, and it's, you know, and that affects everything, like bumping and getting up and turning, bumping and feeding and all of that. So I think that's kind of the biggest challenge. So I would say for you guys as well to follow up and support what Durango said, is really work on the flexibility. I wish I would have done that sooner, and start getting into things like yoga and stretching, and for sure warming up, because probably cut myself short a little bit too many times on some of the injuries. And one of the things that I got to watch out for too is I'm starting to feel a little bit from the concussions, and that came on before. I had a background in hockey, and I do remember getting that flash of you know, when back in my age, we started body contact at Pee Wee. So I remember the head contact and seeing the flash or whatever from Pee Wee, and then through football, and then in wrestling with the chair shots, because at the beginning I used to just, yeah, go ahead, hit me because I'm tough, right? And then now it's just like, so I think I am starting to feel a little bit of the effects from that sometimes, where my memory from stuff like years and years ago is fine, but if you ask me about something within, like, say the last year, like what happened 8 months ago, I might have to think. So it's a little, you know, that is a little tough to do, but I mean, hey man, it's a fact life. And we didn't know anything about concussion protocol back then, right? Like I remember in football, you know, you come off, your eyes were all kind of bugged out. Coach would just ask you, like, what day is it? It's Thursday. No, it's Friday. Yeah, it's Friday. You know, and okay, you're good. Or you know, or you, right? Like we really didn't know anything about concussions. Whereas nowadays, if they, you know, they bump their head, they're penalized heavily, right, compared to back then. And there are protocols and procedures in place so that you can't just return to play. Like, you have to actually go through the whole thing. So I think that's something that's improved over time. And if you can avoid taking chair shots or protecting your noggin a little bit, because that'll help you guys quite a bit. And because I didn't really start feeling the effects of that till around 45. I'm 47 now, or maybe I was just been no selling till I was 45, right? Because, you know, sometimes us as wrestlers, we're stubborn as fuck, are we not?
Well, and you know, the other thing, and I definitely don't speak, but Wavell, you and I, when we were young guys, weren't scared to smoke some weed. Right. You know what I mean? So a lot of times if we had short-term memory loss, we just write it off to that.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point in life where you're not smoking that weed, but you still have the short-term memory loss. Wait a minute.
Well, here's the thing. You touch on a good thing, because also one of the things that's changed over time is that the drug culture is nowhere near what it used to be. Because I do remember getting into the business and not scared to take a Percocet or a Soma, and those kinds of things. And as a matter of fact, it was pretty commonplace back then. But if you recall, like, I don't even think that you can get Soma anymore. But if you recall, that like most of the deaths for that one little run of time had to do with Soma overdose, right? So I think with options out there, I think if you had to pick a route to address your pain management, I would say that all of that crap with the opioids, like the Percocet and the Tylenol 3s and all that, the Oxys, get that shit out of here. Thank you for watching. We had a lot more to talk about, but we figured that would be a good place to stop for now. That was a great time. Thank you for being with us here this week. We'll see you again the next time. However, in the meantime and in between time, that's it. Another edition of the Wavell Starr Show. Bye-bye now.